un momento, prego, la chiamano per una collettiva. Bleiben Sie bitte am Apparat, Sie werden für ein Konferenzgespräch verlangt. Un instant, s'il vous plaît, on vous demande pour une conversation conférence. Un moment.
Pronto? Ciao Poppy! Adesso vi passo Chiara!
We're going on a tour around the world. It'll take a bit of time because the world's quite big.
È una conferenza telefonica.
It's a conference call where I give a strong spiritual thought that we can live together. When we call the zones and they answer, "Hello, how are you?" So it's the life of a family. It's wonderful.
Meraviglia.
Its aim is to help us go on a holy journey, a journey towards holiness.
Working for a more just society. This is the commitment of the Focolare movement with the new campaign of the pathway.
See so many injustices, divisions and different forms of poverty. But it's only by having a real contact with them that can we be a spark that triggers change. But what are the pathways about?
It's a campaign organized to promote fraternity through training and concrete actions in politics, economics, peace, ecology and so on. Over the next 2 years, the title of our pathway will be Embrace Humanity, Spark Change.
Abbraccia l'umanità, innesca il cambio.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura and I'm a student and I do some writing. Welcome to the Link Up, a time when the family of the Focolare movement comes together to catch up with our news.
My name is Tommaso and I'm doing research in philosophy at the Sofia University Institute of the International Focolare town of Loppiano. This afternoon, in fact, at 3 p.m. Italian time, there'll be the presentation of the courses of study now available at Sofia. You can follow this on the university's YouTube channel and you can also apply.
Tommaso and I are here in Rocca di Papa at the International Centre of the Focolare movement. We're here with some members of the movement who come from nearby places. But then we know that we're also with so many of you who are following the Link Up from various countries around the world.
We are delighted to welcome here amongst us the Reverend Mitsumo, one of the people responsible for the Rishu Kosekai, who is responsible for Europe and Africa. And now we're going to link up with Kenya for a special greeting. Amata is connected with us. Amata, can you hear us? Over to you.
Abbiamo un piccolo ritardo, ma tra poco si collega Amata.
Sorry, there's a little problem on the line.
Ecco parte il collegamento. Vediamo se Amata ci sente.
So let's see whether Amata can hear us. Let's give her a big applause meanwhile.
Yes, we're here. A warm greeting from Mariapolis Piero in Kenya, with some Muslim friends, including Dr. Mohammed Shumali. And we're very happy to spend these days together. We're a large group of Muslims and Christians.
Thank you, Amata, and I greet you all very warmly because I still remember the beautiful dialogue I experienced with you at the Sophia University in Loppiano last May with Dr. Shumali, who's now at Mariapolis Piero in Kenya, together with the Dr. Isra and Shanaze. So warm greetings to you. It's lovely to see you again.
Today, we'll be together for about an hour. And the afternoon will be divided in 3 parts. The first one, Tommaso will present. The second will be a long journey to Asia and Oceania. So get your bags ready. And the third, we'll give you some updates and news of future events. But now, let's start with the first one.
This story comes to us from Japan, and it's an example of how you can respond to a dramatic situation affecting your own society. It's a story about women that focuses on the courage and generosity of a group of women of different religions who have embraced and responded to a real social emergency, that of people who decide to take their own lives. The video we're going to see is just a part of a longer report that will be available soon in 5 languages, as well as Japanese, on the Link Up's YouTube channel.
Vediamo.
In the last 20 years, the lifestyle of Japanese women has changed a lot. Over the past decade, far fewer women have been full-time housewives, to the point of gradually becoming a minority. Now, instead, you can be a housewife, but you can also go back to work. It's as though we're being asked to live a completely different lifestyle, but without having role models to refer to. So how can we do it?
When I came to Japan 6 years ago, I often traveled around the city by train. Occasionally, I'd hear an announcement that I didn't understand, but it was translated as human accident. And I've heard this announcement very often. Then I realized that it was a way of not saying suicide.
Because of the coronavirus, the suicide rate among women has increased exponentially. It brought out in a very clear way a problem that previously was only under the surface.
In November 2020, Kyoko came to visit me.
I was studying counselling and I had realised how much women really need psychological support. I talked about all this with Mitty and realised that she was thinking the very same things.
Talking things over, we both wanted to do something about this social problem. And that's where the CommuniHeart project began.
The whole point of the CommuniHeart project is to connect, to unite the inner part of ourselves with the part which we then externalize.
This is an entirely new project. Until now, there's never been a project like this among the activities of the youth section of the WCRB. Hearing about it, I realise it's a pioneering project which addresses challenges typical to young people.
There are 6 of us who are staff at the CommuniHeart project. We are of different ages and religions.
I became a nun at the age of 14, but I became head of the Ishiyama temple only last year. In Japan, it is very rare for a young woman like me to be head of such a large temple. In Japan, usually only men over the age of 60 become chief priests of temples. There are no other women in my position, so I have no one to compare myself with, to share my insecurities with, or to share my joys with. For me, a wonderful treasure of the CommuniHeart project was being able to work towards a single goal with other women of my own generation. We do not have the same roles, but it has been a great joy for me to be able to talk to people who have a religious belief, who practice it, and want to do something for others.
For me, it was an opportunity to face up to my emotions.
We invited a group of 20 girls to the first CommuniHeart project program.
We talked about 5 subjects: life and happiness, relationships, communication, women in society, and last of all, pain.
An important feature of CommuniHeart is that the 6 of us who are staff members are not teachers. And it's because we are not teachers that we can look at the various aspects of life together with the participants. We want to be more like hostesses on an aeroplane, always watching over the passengers and taking care of them. That is why we chose the theme of air travel.
I have never talked about my feelings with other people, but here I felt comfortable about sharing these things. We talked about what to do when there are differences of opinion with someone. I got married after the project, and when there was a conflict with my husband, I stopped and remembered what I had learned. Then I realized there were differences between us. So I thought about how to be there for him and acted accordingly.
I think the reason the project is successful is because we believe in each other. It's about trusting each other. And this believing in each other came about because each shared all the pain there had been in her life, in the way she was raised and lived her life.
Chiara Lubich, Castel Gandolfo, 25th of February, 1989. I realized that modern times require a rather special kind of prayer. In the past, people thought that the world and the universe were fixed, immovable. People had to find God through the stars, through flowers, through contemplation, peace. They found union with God through moments of recollection and prayer in the church, in front of the Blessed Sacrament. Instead, nowadays, people see that the world is in evolution. It's constantly changing. Everything is changing. And human beings also find themselves in this constant movement. They too are in this race towards perfection. So people can no longer stand still and contemplate. They have to participate with God in this evolution, in this continuing creation. So, everything you do in your job, at school, in the office, in the factory, it's all part of building up the world together with God, the Creator, of making the world develop. However, we have to take it ahead with the idea that we are participating in the creative work of God. Seen this way, our work is sacred. We are like the arms of God the Creator, who keeps on building up the world.
Pasquale Foresi, da Dio ci chiama.
Pasquale Foresi from the book Dio ci chiama, God calls us. A very important form of prayer can be experienced at work. I'm thinking especially of people working in manufacturing, of all those people who during the day are overwhelmed by a workload that almost takes away their very ability to think, and so, in a certain sense, also makes it impossible for them to pray. If each morning with a simple intention we offer our daily life to God, then we will live deeply in relationship with God throughout the day. And I think that when in the evening these people who have worked so hard are able to recollect themselves with God, even if only for a few moments, despite their tiredness, they will find unity with Him. They will find it because they've worked all day in relationship with Him. And this is truly the most important thing, to be in the right relationship with Him. And this, after all, is what humanity wants to hear about today, that the whole universe and all that happens in it can be understood in religious terms and can be transformed into one great prayer that rises up to God from the world. Igino Giordani from the book Diary of Fire. This morning I felt as if I had come closer to God. I don't think I had ever felt Him so close to me. My joy was and is so great. I feel that I have found access to Him freely, and my intention is never to stray away from Him again. By the grace of God, I have overcome the obstacles that kept me clinging to the earth. Now I am on earth, and I dwell in heaven. My ambition is huge, but His mercy is even greater. I love God so much. I am no longer hindered by the impulses of vanity, of preferences in friendships. I go directly to God, discarding these wretched things. People may betray me, slander me, even kill me, but I have God, and I love those people without being dependent on them. I belong to God. I don't need anything else.
Chiara Lubich.
Chiara Lubich, Pasquale Foresi and Igino Giordani have helped us reflect on a spirituality at the service of society for everyone that can be lived at work and in city streets. We thank Cinzia Mirasolo, Alessandro Bialo, Davide Vigano, who read these meditations. Today, the link-up will take us along the streets of some of these cities, in particular of two continents, Asia and Oceania, where dialogue between different cultures and religions is part of everyday life. Margaret, Karram and Jesús Morán, president and co-president of the Focolari, have just returned from there.
Benvenuta Margaret e benvenuto Jesús.
Welcome Margaret, welcome Jesús.
Vi accoglie l'applauso caloroso.
You have been welcomed by this really wonderful applause of everyone here in the Focolari Center. And you, together with a group of people from the International Center of the Focolari Movement, you've been traveling to 5 countries, South Korea, Japan, Fiji, Australia and Indonesia. And there you met people of different cultures, members of various Christian churches, the followers of different religions, civil and religious authorities, and many people from the Focolari movement. That's how it went.
Yes, it was an amazing journey, and I'd almost not even say it was a journey, it was an event. It was an experience that we lived, that enriched us. 12 flights, thousands and thousands of kilometers we traveled. It was really beautiful.
And certainly today it's not possible to say everything about happened during this experience, but we will see a few things. So we're going to start this journey that's taking us through your experience. But first, I want to thank the communications teams in these different countries who made all of this news possible for us. Thank you so much. So let's set off, and the first stop is South Korea.
We're glad to say that your presence in Korea was on the news. In fact, the Korean Catholic television reported on it, and they were present at your first public meeting that was called Dialogue Becomes the Culture of the Human Family. So here's a small extract from this. At that meeting, I prayed to the Lord that the congregation of my church would begin to live this spirituality. In 2001, after the strong experience I had in Rome at the Congress on Unity among various Christian churches, I went to the summer Mariapolis with many of the people from my church.
The president of the Focolare movement, Margaret Karram, urged Christians and the faithful of other religions to continue their commitment to peace and universal fraternity in Korea and beyond.
Being together today is a very precious occasion to renew our commitment and collaboration so as to bring peace and fraternity in Korea and also beyond Korea.
The co-president, Jesús Morán, Reverend Jesús Morán, emphasized the need for Christians to dialogue with all people of goodwill to create a prophetic space for a new world. Then there was the visit to the Archbishop of Seoul. And then you went to Daejeon and visited the Sungsimdang business, a company that's part of the Economy of Communion project. It was founded about 70 years ago to sell steamed bread, and today it's a large catering company. I'm so happy to feel I have a mission. I'm helping to change the world. Instead of succeeding on my own, it's a great thing to do something in life that can change this world for the better, and I'm sure this will happen.
Sungsimdang is a Korean bakery and cake shop that's part of the Economy of Communion project. Founded 70 years ago, today has 848 employees and serves 10,000 customers a day. It's always practiced sharing by delivering bread every day to 80 social welfare centers. I wasn't particularly good at anything, but at the age of 40, I can see the fruits of what I've continued doing every day in the small things. So I'd like to assure everyone that even if something is hard work and seems trivial, if you keep doing it faithfully, one day you'll see results.
I've been working here for almost 10 years and have seen some truly miraculous things that made me think that a human being could not have done them. This makes me think that through the Economy of Communion, God is using Sungsimdang as his instrument. So I think the way forward for our company is to carry on as we have done up to now.
What matters most is to love, because since the beginning of Sungsimdang, the main value has been love. And I think the most important thing is for us to live love. The second thing is the product. I can say that our product identity is that all the food we make must be good. If our bread isn't good, even if we love, we won't be loved back by our customers.
기본은 결국은 맛이 없으면 아무리 사랑을 하더라도 사랑받을 수 없기 때문에
이웃의 주란 문화는 The culture of giving, of the Economy of Communion, is a concept whereby things are not taken away from you, but are given to you as something extra. I'm sure this happens all over the world. That's why I believe today's culture of stealing, fighting, and suppressing others will never succeed. Only when there is giving, understanding, and support for others will war disappear and society will improve.
If you want to know more about Sungsimdang's history and activities, there's a report that we made a few years ago on our YouTube channel. Margaret, I wanted to ask you, what do you think a charism for unity can offer today to a society like Korea's that's going at a fast pace? It's very advanced and ultra-technological. That's right. I've made a few notes because there'd be so many things I'd like to say because I don't want to lose where I'm up to. Korean society is very well structured and organized. It's efficient, and so is the Focolare movement there in Korea. The real challenge is not to be overwhelmed by all this, but to focus on relationships. That's why there's a shared commitment to open the doors even wider to the dialogue of life, as Chiara Lubich defined it, not only within the movement, but with everyone. In Korea, when I was there, I shared an experience I had, and I want to share it with you too. I went for a walk in a park one day, close to the Focolare where I was, and I was I really liked the tree that I saw there. It was a bit strange, because it wasn't going up tall, but it was growing horizontally. And it made a big impression on me. And I thought, looking, because as you can see in the photo, these branches, they were all intertwined with one another. They were touching one another. And these trees that were all touching one another. And looking at them, they reminded me how our relationships should be. Like these trees, our arms should always be open, reaching out to others, with our hearts wide open to the joys, sorrows, and lives of all the people who pass us by. And another confirmation to this I got from the characteristic of the Korean church, because the church there was born from a group of lay martyrs, Andrew Kim and his companions. Today, we're in different times. But it can't be less the courage we have to take risks for our faith, the courage to take risks for the charism of unity. It can't be any less. So it's true. In Korea, we're a mature movement, we're numerous, and precisely for this reason, we must have even more courage in giving ourselves to others.
And now we're going to go on to the second stage of our journey to Japan. Among the most significant events of those days was a symposium held at the Catholic Sophia University of Tokyo called "Can We Be a Sign of Hope in the World?" Among the speakers, in addition to you two and various lecturers from the university, was Father Renzo De Luca, a Jesuit and former provincial of Japan. We asked him to tell us something about the Japanese Catholic Church today.
At least we have to shift our point of view of the church. Till now we have always spoken about the Japanese church, but the Japanese church is not just Japanese people. Actually, there's quite more, maybe 2 or 3 times more non-Japanese Christians in Japan. And I think to be aware of that we are a community in that sense, that we don't own the church anymore. I mean, we never totally did, but I mean, it's not a church. I mean, it's a church in Japan, but it's not just for the Japanese people. And I think many people in our community still like that the foreigners are kind of invading our property. And if they like to join, they should stick to the rules and to the customs in Japan. And I think that's not the reality in the church in Japan anymore. So you have the Vietnamese, you have the Latinos, you have the English speakers, you have the Filipinos and so on. And I think that should be integrated in the church to make a community. And that's not yet happening.
After what you've just said, I'd like to go back to the title of the symposium and ask you, Jesús, the question: can we be a sign of hope for the world and for the Church? And in what way?
I do think so, yes. Certainly, hope is the most important virtue for our times. The poets of old said that hope is the sister of the dream and not of a nightmare. So we can balance in us what hope is, but more decisive yet is to be a sign of hope for others. This is the most important thing. What I learned in Japan is that hope isn't linked to success. It's not linked to the quantity, the number of people who are following you. It's enough to think that Christians in Japan, and obviously there are various types of statistics and sources used, but they're between 1 million and 3 million people, and that's after 500 years of evangelization. So hope isn't linked to success. But I saw this in contact with people there. I have people in mind, and I received a letter from one of these people. Hope is linked to a love that's been tried in faithfulness, tested in faithfulness, proved. So from small things, great things can come. And this is what I learned in Japan. And I've come home with a lot of hope. Thank you, Jesús. So now we'll go on to the third stage. We're going to the South Pacific, to Fiji. So in the photos we saw that you also became a little bit Fijian. That drink isn't alcoholic. Just as well it's not an alcoholic drink.
In fact, when we had to leave after 5 days, we had to have another ceremony like this one to say goodbye to us. To say now, because we were part of their community, now they could give us permission so that we could leave, and they would stay there to pray for us so that we arrived safely in our next destination. Really solemn ceremony and an ancient culture. But let's listen now from Peter Emberson. He's from Fiji and he works as a political analyst for the government and for the United Nations.
Culture, because we are largely communal. We can't conceive of ourselves without considering the views of the whole. It's quite vocabulary. So the thing is, and it's lived, and it has a history that is going back for thousands of years, and it's because of that these rituals and practices and just the knowledge and awareness of who we are in relation to others and ourselves, that's what the Pacific peoples bring to the church. And that's what also the Pacific peoples can bring to the movement, to help understand who they are in relation to the ideal and the gospel, because it's lived. So we can continually dialogue and find a place where we can be quite happy and be harmonious about the fact that, yes, we may disagree, but we can take these essences of the Pacific and make it our own, because it only enhances the tapestry of the movement and how the direction in which the movement is going into.
Peter Emberson spoke about dialogue as a value which is rooted in Pacific cultures. Margaret, how does the spirituality of unity fit into this cultural context? In the Fiji Islands, we had really beautiful moments. We shared their food, their drinks. We danced, we talked. We really shared their life. And there weren't just the people from Fiji, but also from the other islands, Fortuna, New Caledonia, and Kiribati. And this made me reflect very deeply, because these people come from cultures that are thousands of years old, as we heard, and they've given rise to traditions that are strongly rooted within them. And even, not just in the older people and in the past generation, but we've seen it even in the young people. They're very rooted in the young people we met. To us, some things might seem a little bit strange, distant, what they do, even a bit folkloristic. But instead, all that they do, it contains very rich human values that our ideal cannot ignore. I told them that they must not lose their culture, but quite the opposite. The charism can never erase who we are and our cultures, but it makes them shine out in their fullness, in their deepest values. And this, I feel, applies not only to the peoples of the Pacific, but to all our peoples.
And from there, you set off and you went to the multicultural metropolis of Sydney in Australia. Among the various meetings with the Australian community, there was one with the young people. We'll hear now from two of them.
Yeah, Margaret and Jesús, so humble and ready to share from the bottom of their hearts. I feel confident in them. Like listening to them talk about how they overcome differences and how they work together sounded supernatural. It sounded exactly like what my experience of my family is. We don't always agree about things, but that's part of life. I think if everything was perfect, then something would be wrong. So I feel confident in them, and I think that just from their answers, it's like the Holy Spirit is already working in them, and they have faith in that. They believe in that, just like Chiara had faith that, when she passed away, God will still guide us. And I feel like Margaret and Jesús have that same faith. And so it's very encouraging and motivating. And yes, it's cool.
Unity, it's very important in the Focolare. I feel like as a young person in this day and age, sometimes I find it a bit hard in the workplace, at university, but I think if that unity is what keeps me going. So the brotherhood and sisterhood of the Gen is really something that I'm thriving for. Spirituality of unity and just seeing Jesus in one another. Anywhere I go, even at workplace or in family, I think going forward it's going to be a crucial part of my life, and yeah, I want that to underpin every action I do as well.
Lawrence
highlighted some of the great challenges that Australian society is facing today, as well as many other societies around the world. And in this regard, I wanted to ask you, Jesús, what was your impression in Australia? As you said at the start, one of the most beautiful things about Australia is its multicultural nature. Obviously, apart from the beauty of the cities, because some of the cities are the most beautiful in the world, where you feel you can really rest. So it's the fact that this society is so multicultural. It's a great value. They have a song, a hymn, that was composed by a sportsman, that the chorus says, I am, you are, we are Australian. And this is so true, because after very little time, Australia is so welcoming that you soon start feeling Australian yourself. I said, I'll take on the nationality because I felt Australian. You really feel that you've been made at home. The challenge that is there is depth. It's not that people should, it's enough just to be beside one another. The Lebanese, the Filipinos, the Koreans, the Anglo-Saxon people, the people should really be all beside one another, because this is already guaranteed there. What is very important is to find a shared deep root, to go into depth, to find something that needs to be sought after further in depth. And this is, of course, a big challenge. But everything starts with making room to the original cultures, the Aboriginal cultures that were marginalized. And this, of course, is a big wound there in Australia, the Aboriginal culture. So this multicultural characteristic starts from integrating fully in the culture of the nation these peoples. But the Australians are very fully aware of this and are working at it. In this sense, I think that the spirituality of unity is very precious, because we saw it in our meetings. In our meetings, there was this multicultural, many cultures, but with a spirituality underlying it. So the role of the spirituality of unity can be very important to help Australia to put down deep roots into its multicultural characteristic.
A beautiful challenge that we can all take on board. But now we've come to the last stage of your journey. You also visited Indonesia, the fourth most populous country in the world and the one that has the largest Muslim population. If there's one word that could sum up this stage of your journey, it's dialogue. Dialogue between people, cultures and religions. Dialogue that's become life, as we'll hear now from Arif, who's a Muslim and a graduate student in physics at Jakarta State University.
In Indonesia especially, you know, the netizens and all that, they usually debate. They debate, not dialogue. That's the usual mistake, right? So if you want to debate, it's like you don't want to search for truth. You just want to win. Yeah. So whose argument is better and all that. I think it's not dialogue. To be in a dialogue, at least you have at that moment, at certain moment in the process of dialogue, you say, I agree with you. You know, there's the common ground. At least once.
Exception.
Yes, at least once. And especially this Focolare movement, I think it's very crucial. I mean, in these trying times, if you can call that, to be religious, you have to be also interreligious, right? And to be interreligious, you have also you have to be in one religion. So it's not like, I don't know, shallow syncretism, all that. But you have one religion, and you acknowledge the other as such. You respect them, and you don't have to change them, but you acknowledge their very difference. I think it's very important, especially these days. Yeah.
Almeno una volta bisogna trovarsi.
You have to find common ground at least once. According to Arif, this is the starting point for dialogue. I'd like to ask you, Margaret, what new things have you understood about dialogue from your time in Indonesia?
Yes, interreligious dialogue with Islam emerged in Indonesia in particular. But in general, what came out is that we're called to live the dialogues, which Chiara called the highways for building unity. But there'll be many other programs that you'll be able to see where we've discovered this dialogue together and how much we've been linked together by this. But we're called to live the dialogues. Chiara defined them as highways for building unity. Dialogue must become even more our way of life, our way of acting at all times, especially today. Today we see the global challenges that we're facing. We must start from this dialogue between people, including people of other religions. We must put it more into action. We already are doing this. We have for many years. Chiara said this to us very strongly. But we feel we've got to speed up how we're living this, to really speed up, each in our own specific way, in living this dialogue. So now, after 6 weeks, 5 countries, you've met thousands of people. How would you sum it all up now, if you can?
We could maybe say a few things. We've shared a little bit, but really it would be impossible to give an overview. The first thing is that during this journey, we've gone towards various peripheries, using the word in the way that Pope Francis used it, and from that point of view, because if you think, for example, in the Fiji Islands, the Focolarini have been there only for less than a year, so they are the most furthest away, or Japan, which is sort of peripheral in another sense, a different sense. But we also went towards emerging cultural areas. This is very obvious, not only in terms of technological development, but also in many different ways to consider it for the future, the Far East and Oceania. So we don't want to say this just because it's a nice way of talking. We went to learn. So I'm not saying this for the sake of saying it, to learn new meanings, new significance for the life of the movement. And we went there to listen, and we came back really having learned so much, truly. One of the things I like to say is this, and it would be understood there from the West, where people, which is defined as Heidegger, the land of the setting sun, as Heidegger would say, the philosopher. We went to the East, which is the land of the rising sun. And this is much more than a metaphor from an anthropological point of view and from a religious point of view, because, in fact, while being there, you see what it means. You have to be in those countries where the sun, which for us is God, is Jesus, where this sun gives light and gives warmth. And you feel it. You feel there is this living, lively humanity, there's fresh freshness there, that things are not filtered, and there are very simple relationships. For example, you go to a Muslim country that is so tolerant. So this is very beautiful, very important for us too, because we're living in this land where the sun sets. So we want to let ourselves be enlightened by this gift, because it really is a great gift to humanity, which doesn't mean that the lands of the setting sun are not beautiful, because the setting sun is absolutely wonderful. A sunset is absolutely wonderful, beautiful, and it's the very same sun, which sets and which rises. So it helps me, and I can sort of make unity between them through Jesus Forsaken, to sum them up. But the experience is this humanity, which gives us great light and great hope. And all this, not because we haven't seen any pain. We saw much suffering. We met people from Vietnam, in Indonesia, and people from Myanmar. There are various very dramatic, tragic situations. But there is this suffering. So this, no doubt, as a first overview that we can give, changes many things. Margaret has said this on different occasions. We're not the same people after this experience. Many things are changing also for the work we're going to do here at the center. There's something, you have a different way of seeing things. You've touched something that is meaningful for you, for our work as president, co-president, all of us here at the center, to be able to work better for May They All Be One.
Margaret, what would you like to add? I'd have so many things to say, so I've written something down. But I want to say that in Japan, we had a strong experience of friendship with the Risei Kosei. It was a strong, renewed commitment between the Focolare and this Buddhist movement to work for humanity, to be a family of peoples who esteem and love each other. And this is so true. The founder, Nikkyo Nivano, was convinced that all people are called to be, he used to say, on the one vehicle, as they say in Japanese, Itai Doshin, which means several bodies, but one mind. This was really what I think we learned in Japan. Then we went to Indonesia, where the national motto written on the coat of arms is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which means we're different, but we are united. So this trip made me reflect on our spirituality of unity and on the deeper meaning of the prayer of Jesus, may they all be one. I asked myself, what does God want to tell us with these mottos that are the foundation of religions, nations, and also specific to our movement? It can't be just a coincidence. That's why, after this journey, the desire arose in my heart to invite everyone in the movement to live more with a greater radicality, our call to unity, to universal fraternity. It's true, as these mottos say, we're different in our mentalities, also in our culture, our ways of being, our traditions, languages, and you could carry on much, much more. We are so different. But what I took away from this journey is that we can be one. This is what I've brought away. I've touched with my hand, I've seen with my eyes, I've felt with my heart that Humanity is called to live in fraternity. So now I'm here. I'm so happy to have come back to return to work with all of you who are listening to me today to bring for unity and peace. This is our calling.
Grazie, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Jesús. And best wishes for all your work, the challenges that you're asked to face now. And now we're going on to the third and last part of our link-up. It's less than 2 months now before the World Youth Day in Lisbon, in Portugal. But now we're going to go to Brazil and hear from Rafaela and Artur, who are going to tell us how they're preparing to participate in World Youth Day.
Hello everyone, my name's Rafaela, I'm 23 and I'm a Gen 2 from the north of Brazil, from the city of Benavides, where Mariápolis Glória, one of the Focolare movement's little towns, is. This year's World Youth Day with Pope Francis will be held in Lisbon, Portugal. Ever since the World Youth Day was held in Brazil in 2012, I really wanted to be able to participate this time too. My sister told me there was a group in our parish that was organizing activities so as to go to the meeting, and I was encouraged and started to participate with her in this group. It was an experience that also involved my family. My mother helped to prepare various delicious foods that we could sell in the parish, but the cost of the trip is very high, and as I was away from the city for work reasons, I could no longer participate in these activities. So I knew I wouldn't be able to raise all the money needed so as to go. So I decided to help my sister, so at least she could participate in this moment. But I kept trusting in God's will and asking for Mary's intercession. At a certain point, I received providence that now means I too can participate in World Youth Day 2023. I count on the unity of all of you and a big hug.
Hi, I'm Arthur. I'm 24 years old and I'm involved in the parish movement here in Brazil, in the city of Natal. Like Rafaela, I'm preparing to go to World Youth Day, and at the same time I'm helping to organize the Genfest, the global youth event of the Focolare, which will be held here in Brazil in 2024. I'm really happy to be able to prepare for these two big events that will certainly be important for our future lives. When it was announced that the next Genfest would take place in Brazil, I felt a mixture of excitement, joy, anxiety, and above all responsibility for all that's going to happen. And now, just over a year before the event, everything is beginning to take shape and our activities are in full swing. Every step is being taken together, in unity, both in the more general things like the choice of the title and our brand identity, and in more specific things. At the regional and local level, we're working in the development of activities and times when more and more people can get to know about the Focolare and about what the Genfest is, and so they might want to participate.
Conheçam movimentos focolares, conheçam o Genfest e queiram participar.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you in Lisbon. We also wanted to ask you if you could send us video selfies of your preparations for World Youth Day that we can share on the social media of the Focolare. You can send them to this address, collegamento@focolare.org.
And speaking of events, before ending, we want to tell you that in a little while, at 4 p.m. in the Vatican, a world event will begin that's called Not Alone, a pact for fraternity, and this pact is what the Focolare movement wants to sign up to as well.
Now we're really at the end. If you want to see the link up again, you can find it in 5 languages on our YouTube channel. Also remember to click on the bell so you can stay updated.
So now we'll end with the music of Genfest and their new song specially written for the World Youth Day that's called Magnificat.
We say goodbye and we'll see you at the next link up, which will be 7th of October 2023. Bye everyone.